Well, hello, and thank you for joining me on this video for a minute. We're going to talk about renovation loans today. My name is Josh Thomas. I've been a mortgage broker in Utah since 2003, so 22 and a half years and counting. Anyway, we're going to go ahead and get into this, and I'm going to be doing some reading, and so I'm going to need these for a lot of this. So thank you, though, for taking the time out. And if this is kind of functioning as a podcast for you and you're listening to it while you're working out or driving up and down the road, then I hope I keep you good company. Um, if a home buyer has some vision, if somebody wants to buy a house of any kind, if they have some vision and can see past the ugly, the broken, the dirty, the defective, we can actually finance almost any home in almost any condition. In fact, the worse the house, the better the equity potential. Those fixer-uppers, the worse the property's in, condition the property's in, the better equity position and potential will be. And so I'm going to go ahead and go through a couple of things. We can actually fully gut a property. We can take out a drywall and wire and plumbing and just kind of everything. I'm going to go through and talk about some of the different programs. We actually have 9 different programs. I had to figure out which thumb I was going to put in. So we actually have 9 different programs to allow renovations, which is probably about 8 or 9 more than a lot of lenders out there. So we've done this quite a few times with a lot of our clients over the years. And so there's a lot of flexibility in this. So I'm going to go ahead and start to kind of go through this. Um, tell a couple stories for a couple of clients. Some of them are pretty fun. Okay, well, first off, when you do a renovation loan, the renovation loan itself functions and feels a lot like a regular 30-year fixed kind of loan. A renovation loan typically is similar to a one-time close construction, if you know what that means, where you close up front and then the renovation happens while the loan itself, it stays the same. So when you're building a house from scratch, you'll either use a two-time close construction or a one-time close construction. Two-time close means that you're going to pay for or you're going to finance the construction first, and then after the construction's complete, then you're going to pay off the construction with permanent financing. And a one-time close essentially wraps it into one. And most of these renovation loans, which are different than what I'm talking about with the construction, because again, we've got one built already and it's just in bad condition. We're going to go change it. Or maybe it's in good condition, but you just want to remodel, maybe do an addition. We're going to get to all of that. But as far as the one-time close similarity is you're going to call me up, you're going to have the work that you want to have done on your property. We're going to submit that to the appraiser when we appraise the property. The appraisal does need to support the value of what's done. So if we're going to do a total gut and we're going to add, let's say, $150,000 of renovation, the new appraised value is, of course, going to be as if the property is new construction, basically, because it's kind of going to be that way. And as long as that supports the value, now there's a little bit of margin in there because in some of our rules, we can actually go to 110% of the appraised value. But basically, if the appraised value supports the renovation work, we can do it. Not a lot of restriction on that, depending on the program. And that's part of what I'm going to get into here in a second. But when you're doing, when you're doing a renovation loan, rates are very, very similar. So if today's rate's 6% on a conventional, then your renovation rate might be like 6.25, right? And if you're 5.5 on an FHA loan, then your rate might be like 5.75 on an FHA renovation loan. Okay, so there's a couple cool things on that. One of the really neat things about monthly payments is if you are living in it while the renovation's happening, monthly payments are due just like they would be on a normal mortgage. But if you're moving out of it while the renovation's being done, or nobody can occupy it while the renovation's being done, then we can actually finance the monthly payments during that era as well. So that's kind of an exciting plus. Let's see, a couple other things I want to get into. I think I'll cover all those kind of as we get going here. So, as I go through this, I want to make sure that you understand and remember there are 5 agencies in the United States when somebody gets a mortgage, that 95% of the time they're going to go through one of these 5 agencies: FHA, Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, VA, and USDA. Those five agencies are the renovation loans I'm talking about today. None of these five really do construction loans per se. And so in most cases, when you're doing construction, you're going to do something else. Okay. So just kind of keep that in mind. And of course, if you can do construction, you can also do renovation in that same channel in a lot of cases. Again, some cool stories. In fact, I love stories, so I think I'm going to go to my first story and then we'll kind of come back to some of these little nitty gritties. Um, one of my favorite stories, this one dates way back actually, but the guy calls me up, good friend of mine now today. At the time, he didn't know who I was, just got a referral to us. And we were talking, and his house, very unique, very unique. So in before the crash, the 2008 crash, he had been renovating his house, and because he was still living there, he was expanding. It was an old house, very small footprint, and he was building it to basically, I think it was like triple the size or even bigger than that. And so what he'd done is he'd basically built the two. So if you picture, the square of a house footprint, you take one wall and then you take another wall, and he basically just enlarged the triangle or the square, right? And so in one corner of the larger square footprint is the existing home, but he built walls out to kind of create a whole much more like house, if you will. And he finished the exterior before everything hit the fan in 2008. And so when he did that, if you were outside looking at his house, it would look like the house was done. The roof was in, the siding was in, the windows were in. But if you open the front door, there's no house. It's then you go inside to see the rest of the existing house, the house that was there before. So you go in the front door to go in the front door all over again. It's just like a shell. And anyway, he called me up because he wanted to finish the renovations, and he'd been having a really hard time finding financing for it. And so that was one of my favorite ones because it was actually a really nice looking house, and he got to be able to go through and just finish everything. And very, very talented individual that knew how to build everything himself for the most part, and had done a lot of it. But it was really cool to be able to help him actually finance that project. The reason it was such a challenge is most banks don't want to pick up a mid-construction project. That's a big, big concern for them. But we were able to do that. And we actually gave him a construction loan, not a renovation loan. But in all reality, it would have still functioned just fine. Okay, let's go back into some of the nitty-gritties. But that was one of the funner stories that I've experienced, way back in the day, and we've actually repeated similar stories since. Um, okay, so let's go through. So again, going back to the five agencies. So each one of the five agencies have different rules, and I'm going to be bouncing back and forth on all these different agencies as we go through this with each different topic. So uh, if you're buying a house, if you're refinancing, either one of them is totally fine for most of these programs. USDA, they have two renovations, but they are for purchases only. So you can only do that on purchases, but VA, FHA, and Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac, they're fine with refinancing or purchasing, and you can use their renovation loan. You can use it for your own primary residence. You can use it for a secondary residence. Now, FHA and VA, for example, they don't finance secondary residences or rentals. They do if you purchased them as primary residences, but if you want a renovation loan, you have to occupy it for them. Otherwise, you go with Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac, who not only will finance your primary residence and a second home, but would also finance a rental property as long as it's a single family home. And that's a big deal. If you're looking into getting into the rental property market and you look at that down payment that stops a lot of people, one of the cool things that you can do here is if you find a fixer-upper, even like a meth house or something. By the way, my lenders hate it when I say that. Financing a meth house, they're like, no, we can't. Yes, we can. Yeah, we can. Don't you worry about it. But we have to rent it. We have to fix it, right? We have to get all that fixed up. Anyway, remediate it, I think is the word I was looking for. But you could buy a single family home rental. It's in terrible condition, and you could do the renovation loans on it and then keep it and rent it, which would be a good way to actually build up not only equity, but then probably cash flow because the overall cost to you would be quite a bit less than it would be if you bought the fixed up home in the end all by itself. or as is. So that's a big plus, being able to buy rental properties and fix them up. But just remember, no multifamilies, right? So no duplexes, no triplexes or fourplexes. Um, I think I just tackled that one actually. So let's do down payments. So not only down payment, but down payment calculations too. So it's FHA is 3.5%. That's your minimum down for FHA. And the same goes on the renovation loans now. The question is then going to follow, is the 3.5% on the purchase price, or is the 3.5% on the appraised value, or excuse me, the renovation costs? Or is the 3.5%, like if I'm refinancing, how does that work? And so this is how it works. So if you're buying, you have a purchase price, let's just call it 400,000, and you wanted to do $100,000 in renovations, then your combined acquisition cost is going to be 500,000, and it's the 3.5% off the 500,000. Okay, so that's, what is that, $17,500, something like that. So that's how they calculate the down payment across the board, is it's off of the purchase price and the renovation cost, which form your acquisition cost. It's off of the acquisition cost. So if it's a 3.5% down payment, if it's a 5% down payment, though, or zero if you're VA and USDA, they don't have down payment requirements. So um, calculation, I just went over that. So yeah, I think we'll go ahead and move on now. There was something that I said though that made me think I wanted to go more into this 3.5%, 400,000, and then you wanted to do, hopefully it comes to me. Credit score. You do have to have a little bit better credit score on these programs, typically, but not much better. A 620 credit score is pretty much what we require. FHA will go down much lower than that, but not on a renovation loan. You need a 620 score. And for conventional, honestly, you really need much better credit score. It doesn't require it. It's just you're not going to like the math if you have a bad credit score. Contingency reserve. So this is an important thing. If you've ever built a house before, you know that there are contingencies. There are things that happen that you did not foresee if you've ever done any major remodeling. Well, in a renovation loan, we basically consider that as well. We recognize that there are going to be the unforeseen, and we will build a contingency fund, minimum 5% of the total project, and possibly as much as 10%, and possibly even more if we felt like there was a real risk to it. But 15%, like if the utilities are off, you're buying just a real beater, and like even the water and gas and everything are turned off, then it's going to be a 15% contingency. What does that mean? If you have $100,000 renovation you want to do, we're going to put 10%, which is $10,000, into a contingency fund. The contingency fund is for when you go over budget, right? So if you projected 3,000 for flooring and it's actually four, that $1,000 extra would come out of the contingency section. But that means that instead of borrowing 100,000 for renovations, you're going to borrow 110 or possibly 115 if the utilities are off. Make sense? So those across the board, all programs will have a contingency reserve. Luxury. So FHA does not allow any luxury to be purchased or financed. So what's a luxury? So gazebos, pools, finishing your yard, things like that would be considered luxury. FHA does not permit that. However, Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac do. In fact, we have a pool-specific Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac loan for renovations of pools to add a pool exclusively. But it does include all the decking and everything that goes around the pool as well, even a gazebo, or if that was part of what you wanted to do. It's everything to do with the pool. So, and that's one of our specialty niches. So that's part of how we get to 9 renovation loans when there's only 5 agencies. Okay. So absolutely can handle pools, yards, all kinds of cool stuff like that. What about if you want to expand the house size, like my story I shared a few minutes ago, where he's literally building a bigger house, doing an addition. We absolutely can finance those across the board, FHA, VA, all of them. Well, FHA, Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac. USDA and VA are probably not going to work out. VA has a $50,000 maximum on theirs, and I don't know who can add much to a house with only 50 grand. But Fannie Mae, or excuse me, Fannie Freddie and FHA are all for it. You want to add 1,000 square feet to the house, 5,000 square feet, as long as it fits into the financing guidelines, right? So if conventional, we're up to 830,000. as a maximum loan amount. FHA, it depends on the county, but somewhere between 600 and I don't know, 750, depending on where you're at in Utah. As long as the loan amount is under that threshold, then they're okay with you spending the money on it. Let's get into minimums. So some of these programs have what we call limited. Limited programs are where it's a little bit easier on the rules, and they kind of restrict a little bit of what you do. So, for example, structural stuff. On these limited programs, we won't typically allow for structural stuff. So maybe you just want to go in, recarpet, repaint, reappliance, re-countertops, but you're not changing any walls, for example. You don't need any engineering. Then we'll do a limited program. FHA's 203K, by the way, this is the name of FHA's program. It's that name itself, 203K, is pretty famous. A lot of people have heard that phrase or that name anyway. 203K is just the name of their renovation product, but they have a 203K limited, and the limited can go up to 75,000 as long as there's no engineering and no structural changes. So that's kind of a minimum for them is you just well, there's no real minimum, to be honest. 5,000, $10,000 is probably the minimum. The programs don't necessarily have minimums, but if you're only doing 5,000, you're not going to want to use one of these programs. It doesn't make sense. There's other ways that we can get you there if you're only looking for maybe 5 grand or so of renovations. Let's see, did I cover everything? I mentioned the meth homes. I mentioned my lenders do not like me advertising that, but the reality is that we can do them. We just have to remediate the meth, right? Just like anything else. But as long as it's all good and safe when you're done, we're going to be good. Um, Oh, I think one of the cool things that we do too as part of this program is we're actually kind of underwriting the contractors as well. So if you have a project you want to look at, we're going to go ahead and take not just purchase price and your credit and your income and stuff. We're also going to look at the contractor, and we don't have any specific list of contractors you have to use. We can ask and get some, but the way that we manage it is we actually just vet the contractor on the spot. They have a few forms they need to fill out, for draw requests and things like that. But we're going to go through and just kind of vet them out as well as what if we think that they can complete the project and are going to be timely about it and dependable. And if we don't approve them, then chances are we just saved you a massive headache because if they don't do a good job, that would be a drama spot for you guys, right? So you think about it. You ever heard the story of a contractor collecting, a deposit up front, a large deposit, often 50% of the project or something, and then never hearing from that contractor again? It's a real thing. That's a scam that happens, and it still doesn't. We can't. It's not going to be flawless with us. Some of those contractors still turn into that story. They go bankrupt or whatever. But if we've thoroughly vetted them out, then most likely they're going to be just fine, and you've avoided one of those contractors most likely. So. Anyway, that's kind of renovation loans. Again, like I started, if a home buyer has some vision and can see past the ugly, the broken, the defective, things like that, and they can see past that, we can finance all that renovation that they want to do. We just need the estimates from the contractors, along with an offer on a home and or a home that you already own and want to refinance it. So we got you. If that's something you want to do, don't be afraid of major gutting. We can handle that. So again, let me know if you have any questions. This is Josh Thomas out of Utah, helping you guys out. You have a great rest of your day or evening or night, depending on when you see this.